Was ist los? It's your German boy, and welcome back to Planetarian. Now, in the last episode, Yumemi was so excited to show us her projection she had lined up, but because of technical difficulties, we weren't able to make that happen. Thus, we kind of just fell asleep, had a Vietnam flashback, and we woke up back in the same room we were in before. When we last left off, she was nowhere to be seen, so let's see if she's still around, shall we? While her rambling nonsense was all well and good, if she had any intent of harming me, it might have been in my best interest to strike preemptively. Then again, if I were asleep so deep that she could put a bouquet on me without my noticing, then I would have been unable to resist even if she came to lop off my head. I stood and shouldered my grenade launcher. I made my way through the rows of chairs in order to gaze at the machine. I was completely dumbfounded. There was a massive pile of unidentifiable junk here on the floor. Toolboxes and oil cans left open, a mountain's worth of old rags, an incredible number of parts sealed in plastic bags. Perhaps all of this was for the sake of that machine. It was impossible to tell at this point whether the machine had been in the middle of being disassembled and repaired, or whether all this stuff had been accumulated here for some other purpose. My money's probably on the former. The chaos from the time of the city's abandonment was thus left preserved right here, even to this day. While the variety of parts was staggering, it did not seem as if there was anything worth taking back with me. On the pedestal where the machine stood, there was an inscription engraved on an old tarnished metal plate. Planetarium projector manufactured by Carl Zeiss, Jena. The oldest twin star ball style projector in operation today. Miss Jena, huh? It would seem that what the robot was saying was not total nonsense after all. Was this twin star ball style projector some kind of optical observation device? Even if it was so, the dome was airtight and didn't seem to be retractable, and the concentric guest seating made no sense either. But no matter what the original purpose of this facility had been, it was now nothing more than a meaningless historic ruin. It was unnecessary to stay here any longer. I quickly gathered my equipment and put on my half-dried waterproof cloak. And then I could faintly hear a voice coming from beyond the open door.
プラネタリウムはいかがでしょう。どんな時も決して消えることのない美しい無休のきらめき。満天の星々が皆様をお待ちしています。お客様、ようこそいらっしゃいました。あなたはちょうど249万
She forgot our log from yesterday. I could hardly believe my ears, but I had to confirm it. I walked along the arc-shaped corridor. Sure enough, light and the sound of rain intruded once again on my path. I quieted my footsteps and slowly rounded the corner. This was the reception area of this facility. Although the eaves had probably once stretched all the way to the entranceway, now there was nothing left but the skeletal framework of an arch. Everything from there on out was under the dominion of the rain. Inside the front counter were two plain chairs, a data terminal connected to an old-style CRT monitor, a cluttered stack of papers and books, copying equipment, a megaphone, a flashlight. All of these things, never to be used again, had been soaked in Wasser, rusted, faded away, and had quietly forgotten their original functions. And the rain, feigning ignorance as always, was continuing to fall. There was little here to remind me what a disaster yesterday had been, except for just one thing. That robot was standing like an abandoned watchdog beside the broken glass doors. Totally oblivious to the fact that she was getting drenched in the downpouring rain, she was smiling gently, her hands clasped in front of her.
プラネタリウムはいかがでしょう。
She addressed the deserted rooftop once again.
どんな時も決して消えることのない美しい無休のきらめき。満天の星々が皆様をお待ちしています。
Like a flawless actress, she repeated the exact same words over again. And then she turned toward me.
こんにちは、お客様。ご気分はいかがでしょう。もしもまだご体調が優れないようでしたら。
I fell asleep, that is all. The robot blinked curiously. Now that I was looking at her under natural light, I could see that her peculiar clothing, which seemed to be made of chemically treated cloth, was filthy in some places and had a ragged texture.
お元気そうで何よりです。ですが、もうしばらく休んで行かれてはいかがでしょう。ただいま、当デパート医務室に連絡を取っておりますので。
I was happy for her concern, but I truly did not believe that any aid would come. What are you clamoring about out here?
失礼ですが、騒いでいたと申しますと。
You were speaking even though there was no one around, were you not?
はい、発声練習をしていました。いつお客様がいらっしゃってもいいように万全の体制でお迎えしなければなりませんので。
I see. As I spoke the suitable response, I looked around the vicinity for any unnatural signs. And at one side of the counter, I noticed a display case like that found in a jewelry store. I could just barely make out the inscription. Opera glasses, pendants, and handbooks on the case.
お土産がご入り用ですか。それでしたら、当館人気ナンバーワンの立体星座早見はいかがでしょう。
Nah, I'll pass. I've got a lot of crap in my house as it is. She blocked the muzzle of my gun by displaying a warped plastic disc.
それでしたら、ポスターなどはいかがでしょう。こちらは12星座をモチーフにしており、特別な蓄光塗料で印刷。
I'll pass.
それでは、当館オリジナルの12星座ペンダントはいかがでしょう。今ならプレゼントにも最適なクリスタルケースに。
I only wear car hood ornaments. I'll pass, please. Thanks. Yeah, I'll pass.
でしたら。
It seems that it was not important to her that the souvenirs she was recommending would soon be trashed, even in the best of circumstances. I had never met such a persistent seller at any trading post I had been to. Having confirmed that there was nothing else moving in the vicinity, I raised the muzzle of my gun. What time is it right now?
はい、ただいま午後3時31分です。あと29分ほどで次回投影となります。
It seems that I'd slept for almost an entire day. The concept of a single global standard time had been lost long, long ago. While I did not know how accurate her internal clock was, I decided that when in Rome, I might as well do as the Romans do. I wound up my watch and adjusted the time on it to 3:31 p.m. This meant that even though it was bright right now, there was not much time left until sunset. If I wanted to move from here, it would be a race against time. What a bother. The moment that I turned to go, she cocked her head dubiously.
お客様、大変差し出がましいですが、あと18分ほどで次回投影の受付終了となりますので、そろそろお並びになった方が見やすい席をお取りになれますが。
She gently gave me advice with a pure smile. That device is broken though, right?
あの機械というのは。 イエナさんのことでしょうか？
Correct.
はい、イエナさんは現在故障中です。
The robot continued reassuringly, leaving not a moment for even a single question.
現在スタッフと緊急連絡を取っておりますので、到着次第早急に修理できる見込みです。
Where was she getting the optimism to be expecting such things from anyway? Sorry, but I dislike waiting. I was about to turn away from her, but her supplicating gaze caught me.
それでしたら修理の間、当デパートでお買い物をなさるというのはいかがでしょう？よろしければお得な割引券をご用意できますので。
Saying this, she produced a card from one of her ear slots. How do they reload the paper anyway?
どうぞ。
Curious question.
当デパート全フロア共通でご使用になれます。
I ignored the scrap of papers that she was presenting to me with a smile. I had already carefully inspected the lower floors yesterday. The basement, where the commodity stores were probably located, had already been completely submerged in Wasser. The other floors were in similarly bad shape. Only rats and mold would be pleased about the broken glass, the collapsed walls, and the remains of clothes and electrical appliances that were fashionable 30 years ago. Shopping is not a hobby of mine.
それでしたら当デパート6階には特選食堂街がございます。和洋中華すべてのメニューが揃った清潔で明るい店内でゆっくりとお食事などはいかがでしょう？
You know, I would love to do so if it were possible, but...
大変失礼ですが、お持ち合わせがないということでしたら。
Babe, I don't get triggered. Look, that is not it. Who the hell is gonna fix it?
あれというのはイエナさんのことでしょうか？
Yeah, that utterly incomprehensible device. When you told me that you would show me the stars yesterday, it didn't work, did it now? Also, I said it gently, so she would understand. I did not have the tolerance to stand there for much longer.
はい、その説は大変ご迷惑をおかけしました。ですがご心配には及びません。ただいまスタッフを呼び出しておりますので、到着次第すぐに修理に取り掛かります。お客様、もしかしてどこかお体の具合が悪いのでしょうか？
She again asked me apprehensively. I desperately stifled the rising urge to scream into the rain-filled sky. I had heard that these robots would never disobey a human being, nor would they ever allow a human being to come to harm. If this were true, then it was obvious that this robot's pattern of behavior was totally deranged. It wasn't necessary to stay with her for any longer. Fine, I will be below, so contact me when repairs are finished. With my finger on the safety of my gun, I chose my words with great care.
はい、ありがとうございます。
She replied, shutting her huge eyes tightly with happiness.
私はとても嬉しいです。実を申しますと、お客様が不機嫌なご様子でしたので、何か粗相をしてしまったのではないかと心配していたものですから。
She turned to me with a face that seemed almost radiant with evening dew.
人間の皆様を不安にさせたり、不快な思いをさせることのないよう、一生懸命お仕えすることが私たちロボットの喜びです。
She clasped her hands in front of her chest and squeezed them tightly as if there was something most valuable within them. Her words were full of honest pride, her delicate actions filled with kindness, and her smiling face was ineffably gentle. These robots, without a scrap of malice in them, were treasures that had been destroyed along with the old world. Treasures indeed, even if they had been programmed to act this way from the start.
それでは 投影機の修理ができ次第館内放送でお知らせします。スタッフと連絡がつき次第早急に修理いたしますので。
Sure, I replied, though the words were sticking in my throat.
昨日お約束した通り、お客様には記念投影をご覧いただきますので、再入館の際は私にお申し付けください。お客様の花束は大切にお預かりしておきますので。実を申しますと、記念投影をご覧になるのはお客様が最初なんです。当館のスタッフ一同が心を込めて制作した自信作ですので、私も粗相がないよう一生懸命努めさせていただきます。
But this commemorative projection would never attract any people. Not today, not tomorrow, not any day after this. On the rooftop of a forgotten ruin, a broken robot, and the broken robot alone, was looking forward to the future with happiness, her eyes full of life. She was waiting for customers who had never in all eternity come, even to this day. There was nothing more than pain waiting for me here if I were to stay any longer. I flipped on the hood of my waterproof cloak and stepped out into the rain.
心よりお待ちしています。
I could tell that she was bowing very deeply toward me. I could feel her eyes on my back, seeing me off as if she'd be doing so forever. It was already getting late into the night.
本当に申し訳ありません。お客様にこんなことまでしていただいて。
The indoor lighting brightened the room considerably, with its rays floating up to the top of the dome. She was gazing at the thing in my hands with a worried look on her face. I am not a customer.
いいえ、大切なお客様です。
Look, no customers will ever be coming.
私の基本データベースおよび現在までの蓄積データベースを照合しますと、お客様は必ずお越しになると考えます。
We can make a bet if you want, but I'm telling you, no customers will ever be coming here again. She fell silent for a little bit, as if to mull over my words. And then she spoke tentatively.
ですが、実際にこうしてお客様にお越しいただいたわけですから。
Look, I am not... Even as I tried to respond, I involuntarily found myself at a loss for words. Just what was I doing? I was already sick and tired of hanging around this dead city. I should have been moving as quickly as possible to get to the quarantine wall before nightfall. Yet somehow I found myself not moving at all. And on top of that, right now I found myself with a rusty tool in one hand and a can of machine oil in the other. A war broke out, and it's continued for many years. As a result, all the people of this world died. Those who survive now have no interest in things like stars. Everything from the time you remember has completely changed. Do you understand? I explained patiently, but emphatically, holding a screwdriver in one hand. She once again cocked her head as if she were mulling things over. And only after 10 seconds did she open her mouth again.
サポートセンターに該当情報を紹介していますが、受講されません。申し訳ありません、お客様。
After tilting her head back from its 15-degree angle, she responded to me in a low voice. I noticed that she always did this when she could not understand what I had said. However, her ignorance and her lack of understanding were most probably not her fault, because intelligence was not a necessary trait for a robot to faithfully execute the duties given to it. That was all. Are you calling her a dumbass? You're a dumbass. I don't like that.
でも、たとえ当館にご用のない方であっても、お越しいただいた方はすべて大切なお客様だと考えています。
Yeah, you probably do. Right now, I was literally whittling away my life by helping her. Therefore, I could not rest in peace until I was at least getting treatment worthy of a guest of honor. Right. So, what was I doing elbow deep in Greece?
そうそう、以前にこんなことがありました。小さな男の子のお客様が壊れてしまったご自分のおもちゃを私のところまで持ってこられたんです。ロボットならおもちゃを修理できるだろうと思われたらしいのですが。
She smiled as she reminisced, clasping her hands to her chest. It felt somewhat strange to see her speaking in such an ironically polite manner, so much like a human being.
結局、当デパート5階のおもちゃ売り場に連絡し、特例として無償修理するということでご納得いただけましたが、あの時は本当に困ってしまいました。たとえ当館にご用のないお方であっても、お客様をがっかりさせるようなことなどあってはなりませんので。
As her chatter eventually managed to come to an end, I finally understood the truth of the situation around me. First of all, this building's really not a camouflage military facility, but a simple department store. My impression from the shape of the roof, that there might have been an aerial defense radome housed within, and my subsequent infiltration of the building to see what I could scavenge, were completely in vain. To my utter dismay, what I'd found seemed to be an amusement attraction that showed paying customers a view of the stars. As she had so helpfully explained, she worked alongside her human co-workers, but had been abandoned here amidst the confusion of the citywide evacuation. In this case, her co-workers had made a critical mistake. They didn't erase her memory, nor did they remember to switch off the power generator. Because it seems that the emergency power generator in this Flower Crest department store somehow ended up siphoning electricity from a still functional military power conduit. Since this floor of the building drew an insignificant amount of current in total, its power supply continued to be uninterrupted even in the midst of the citywide evacuation. And consequently, what happened? Once every year, or as she would so precisely put it, for just 168 hours out of every 8,784 hours, she awoke out of hibernation. When her internal clock indicated 9:50 a.m., she would arise, open the doors to the reception area, and wait for customers to come. When it indicated 7 p.m., she would lock the doors, and when it indicated 12:03 a.m., she would go into sleep mode, switching back to normal mode at 9 a.m. the next morning. 168 hours after her last restart, her batteries exhausted, she would plug herself back in, falling into a deep sleep for the next 8,616 hours until the trickle of current recharged her. This had continued with incredible punctuality over the last 30 years, like a sacred ritual within this dead city, without anyone knowing it. In other words, she was operational for less than a week out of the entire year. And what all this meant was that a luckless junker who didn't understand anything about this situation simply appeared on the scene as if he'd specifically aimed for that week. There was something deeply wrong about the strange way that she had welcomed me, alright. However, what was most troubling above all else was that she didn't understand a thing about what happened to the world while she was asleep. She obstinately believes that her co-workers had gone on a long vacation, and that as the fads of society came and went, customers would return without fail.
お客様、 私が思いますに、この工具がご入り用ではありませんか？
Just then, she busily rummaged through the toolboxes and presented a tool split down the middle. I don't.
そうですか。
She put the rust-drenched wrench back into the toolbox with a completely disappointed look. I'm asking nicely now. Stop doing unnecessary things.
ですが、この事態は完全に投函側の落ち度ですので、私としましても黙って見ているというわけには。
Just shut up and watch. That's the most helpful thing you can do for me.
はい、承知しました。
She had replied so meekly, but I had already heard those words from her lips 100 times before. There was one other thing that I could not help being shocked by. It was this device that she called Miss Jaina. Even in my earliest memories, the atmosphere had already started to become deranged. It was rare to even be able to see the sun during daytime, and as for the stars, I simply knew that they existed and nothing more. The Earth revolved around the sun, and the moon revolved around the Earth. Galaxies, nebulae, constellations, the Milky Way, comets, asteroids, shooting stars. Traveling missionaries would preach to us about them in reverent voices, as if they were reciting verses from their mold-ridden holy books. And by this time, they had all perished. It seems that this device was something that professed to reproduce the complex and mysterious revolutions of the celestial spheres by way of a staggering number of lenses, electrical light bulbs, and gears. This was far too primitive and inefficient even in comparison to the most basic of holovids or retinal projections. Therefore, I couldn't help but feel that her comments about their lack of customers recently were a matter of course.
実を申しますと、イエナさんは私よりもずっと長い間ここで働いていますから、多少の機械的な不具合は仕方がないんです。
As if she had seen the expression on my face, she again began to talk.
ただ、私がこちらで働き始めた折に伝送系を回収した上、コンソールは総交換しましたので、イエナさんが完全に作動不能になるような重大な事態は今までに経験したことがありません。
She tirelessly repeated that same excuse I had heard so many times over. Since I wasn't actively engaging in her dialogue, she once again started to rummage through the tools. I soon found the cause of the projector's breakdown. All the exposed moving parts were covered with grease to the point that it would not be a lie to call them deluged in the scheiss. The maintenance crew probably applied this much grease during the citywide evacuation in order to protect it from rust. Since the grease had been applied even up to the motor's indicator lights, it was obvious that the thing wouldn't work. The first thing I had to do was polish the terminal contacts to the degree that they probably were before. And with that mission in mind, I think I'll save the rest for the next episode. Till next time, this has been your boy, Auf Wiedersehen.